Today on the DML News Podcast, Russia attacks Ukraine, Trump responds. The leftist judges continue as one is in big hot trouble for harboring a terrorist. Can't make this stuff up. Plus, The View goes radical once again. We've got a bunch of different things to talk about today, and as always, it's going to be all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Across from me is my son Ryan. He's on the controls. Next to me is my son Denny, back from the world of shipping orders for DML CBD. I'll start off by telling you, DMLCBD.com. Buy one, get one free. Ends tomorrow. So you got 2 days. In fact, yesterday on the show, I gave a little explanation about how it is that DML CBD has helped people sleep. And I got a lot of emails, people saying to me, which one is best for sleep? Listen, I have testimonials. I don't even know how many. It's in the many thousands of people who have said to me, you have changed my life. And when I look at all the different research reports and health reports, and I'm pretty active in this stuff. I read up on it all the time. The number one thing that you can do for yourself is sleep. It's amazing. I remember when I was a kid, like there's part of you that wants to sleep, and then there's the other part of you that never wants to go to bed. Same thing. Mary, a lot of times I'll see Mary, she'll be sitting up watching television till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, May, you got to get some sleep. You got to get sleep. Oh, I can't sleep. You can sleep. And then that's when I introduced her to DML CBD, and now she sleeps back like she's a teenager again. So DML CBD has a lineup of products, and those products will help you get your sleep back. They'll help you get rid of the aches and pains. They will help you rid of the anxiety. They will absolutely boost the immune system, and skin issues will say bye-bye. So go to DMLCBD.com. Buy one, get one free. We do this every couple of months. We're not going to do another one until July. Get in there and get there now. If you are an existing customer, you know how important this is. You are getting the Ferrari of CBD products at Kia prices. It's unheard of. We make very little money when we do these BOGOs, but at the end of the day, we are helping you live such a better life. So get in there. And if you have not tried this yet, and you're suffering from any one of the things or a combination of those things that I just said, you owe it to yourself to give it a chance. If you don't, you're being very, very silly. That said, 47 Report is our newsletter, and it is the inspiration for every one of these shows. And today is no different. I am going to start off reading to you something that we posted on the 47 Report this morning, because a reader named Veda wrote, "It seems a judge or the Supreme Court always denies Trump everything that he orders." And so here was our response. Thomas Jefferson once wrote, "Nothing in the Constitution has given them," meaning the federal judges, "a right to decide for the executive, more than to the executive to decide for them. The opinion which gives to the judges the right to decide what laws are constitutional and what not only for themselves in their own sphere of action, but for the legislative and executive also in their spheres, would make the judiciary a despotic branch." So essentially what Jefferson was writing there is that if judges are allowed to decide what laws are constitutional, not just for themselves, but also for Congress and the president, then the courts would become too powerful, like a dictatorship. If judges can overrule everyone and everything, the whole system becomes unbalanced and unfair. It is absolutely insane that I am sitting here and talking to you now for what I believe is probably the 70th day, because Trump's been in for 95. And by the first 25 days, the first 3 weeks, Trump had started all of his executive orders in place. And it took that long for the first judge to sort of stand up and say, no, you can't do that. Nope, you can't do this. Nope, you can't do that. And no, you can't do this. These district judges who I wouldn't even take seriously if they told me that I had to pay double the fine for a speeding ticket. These judges are dictating the direction to which the United States will or will not take. Now, here's the amazing part. We are not a dictatorship. We are not a communist country. And yet we have district judges, most of them, if not almost every single one of them, being assigned to that role by either Barack Obama, Joe Biden, or Bill Clinton, making the decisions that go against what it is that the American people voted for in November. Now, there was a recent poll, Dennis brought this up the other day on the show, that the majority of Americans now want all illegal aliens deported because they are finally getting a sense for how dangerous and how horrible the illegal alien population in this country has grown. You will hear estimates. Everybody's got a different estimate. CNN's still going with the crazy 11 million. They've been running that number since the early 2000s, late 1990s. J.D. Vance just said the other day he thought it was a little over 20 million. With all due respect to the vice president, he's clueless as well. If you speak to experts like myself who really, really, really understand how it is that this whole thing works, you are looking more at a number at a minimum 30 million, at a maximum 50 million. Now, where do I come with that from? For those of you who date back to 1986, you may recall the worst mistake that a president has made in our lifetime with regard to immigration was Ronald Reagan. That's why I can't say Ronald Reagan was the best president. He gave amnesty. How can you be the best president, especially for the GOP, if you're going to give amnesty? In fact, in many aspects, it would almost mark Reagan as one of the worst presidents ever. But that was his big mistake. And when he gave that amnesty, he thought he was going to be giving it to about 1 million people, and it turned out to be 4 million people. So we were at a 4x number. The government never gets numbers correctly. When was the last time you ever recall the government getting anything correctly with a number? They can't even get the unemployment number right. They can't get the amount of new jobs created right. They miss it by such gross numbers. It's not like they came in and said, last month, the new jobs report shows that there were 205,000 new jobs. It's not like they come back the next month and say, oh, we made a mistake. It was 204,000. No, it was 200,000, only to come back for them to say, oh, we made a mistake. It was only 80,000. The numbers are so widespread. The government can't find its ass with both hands. You know this and I know this. We've seen this with all the Doge reporting. Money that's missing, unaccounted for. Where'd it go? Oh, we don't know. Well, this is billions of dollars. What do you mean? I can't find it. So when the government gives you a number that says there's 11 million, 15 million, or 20 million, common sense based on historical numbers and historical mistakes say that we could be as high as 4 times the amount that the government reports if we're going to go based on what happened in 1986. So if you've got 11 million from CNN, that means we've got 44 million. If you've got 15 million from various different estimates for different immigration outfits, I'll call them, they'll say 15 million a lot often. Well, that means that we can have 60. If you go to somebody like J.D. Vance, who says we've got 20 million, my goodness, could we be at 80? Could we be at 80 million? I would argue that. Yeah. Especially if you count the amount of new births, unfortunately, through the 14th Amendment, which makes these people legal citizens, which is just crazy, a crazy interpretation, again, by the courts, of what it is that the 14th Amendment was designed for. The 14th Amendment was designed to protect the children of slaves in this country, not to protect the people who cross our border and then plop out a kid. If you take a deep look at all of the illegal aliens in this country, if you take a look at the children that they have spawned, we are probably exceeding, no joke, 50 million people easily. I always love telling the story, although I hate it in general. When we lived in East Hampton, New York, we moved in there. And I remember it was the first question because we had come from a school district where it was extremely Italian, Irish, Polish, people who look like me. It's probably the easiest way of saying it. Our school district, I think, if it wasn't mistaken, was probably in the 96, 97 percentile white. In fact, just say the Massapequa School District. And Massapequa is making headlines these days because they are called the Massapequa Chiefs. And the radical wokes of New York are trying to make Massapequa change their mascot name. They don't want it to be the Chiefs anymore. They say it's racist to the Indians. So now Trump is getting behind this and protecting those folks in Massapequa who say that's ridiculous. It's not racist. Not racist at all. We had, I believe, like I said, a 97% white, 3% other. So when we were moving to East Hampton, I was a bit concerned. What was I going into? I knew that there was an illegal alien population that was rising out there because there's so many rich people that live in the city but come out in the summer. We call them cityots. And the cityots love to hire the illegal aliens. So when we moved out there, it was a 17% population, if I remember, of Hispanic. Now, it's very hard to afford living out in the Hamptons. So many times, these people would live multiple families to one home. In fact, if you watch They Come to America, I bring you into one of those homes, and you see multiple families living in one house, and they're illegal. By the time that we left East Hampton, which was a 12-year spread, I think we were there for 10 years, 12 years. By the time we left, that population had gone from 17% to I think as high as maybe 67 or 70%. Would you say that, right, Ryan? The majority of your school was Hispanic by the time that you graduated? About 60%? So if you take just those numbers there, we almost 4 times the amount of people who are living in our town over a span of 10 years. So there is no doubt in my mind that we are 4x to whatever it is the number that you want to land on, whether it's CNN's number, it's the government's number, whatever. The problem I have with this is that you have an incredible amount, 20 to 30 to 40 million people have broken our laws. 20 to 40 million people. Think about that. If we have 350 million people in this country, that means that 10% or more are actual criminals, and we're allowing them to just roam the streets. The judges, for some reason, want to make it so this way these illegal aliens can stay. Not just the illegal alien who came over here and said, let me pick grapes or let me pick lettuce. Let me hang sheetrock. Not just those, but the worst of the worst. The illegal aliens who do things to people that when you hear it on the news, you quickly say to yourself, my God, I can't even imagine. Imagine if that was my kid. Imagine if that was my family. You can't imagine. The stories that I've heard, you've seen them in my films. There have been stories that I haven't even made it to my films, and they're so egregious that I'm not sure I would be able to write about them and post it on somewhere like Facebook because I think they would take it down for breaking the community policies, which is just insane. So we have ourselves a judge problem because we got a president who wants to rid of these people. We have a president who wants to carry out the rule of law. It's not a president who wants to do something that's radical, like Joe Biden. We have a president who's just looking at the rules and saying, wait, based on the rules, the Constitution, the laws that are in here on immigration, these people should not be here. And as the president of the United States, I have the power to dictate who can and who cannot be here. And the judges just say, we don't give a rat's ass. Stephen Miller, I think, is quickly becoming, if he's not already there, the most valuable person in the White House. I mean, I think ultimately it goes Trump, Miller. In fact, Miller, I'd almost like to see him be president, to be quite honest. The guy is articulate. He takes no BS. He doesn't pussyfoot around. And he articulates what needs to be said in a way that leaves nobody questioning. Nobody questioning. You don't have to read between the lines. You don't have to say, what did he just say? He just kind of contradicted himself. His message is as tight and clear as mine, especially when it comes to this topic. We have a video right now that we're going to play. It's a clip. It's of Miller speaking about these radical judges, because at the end of the day, your country may end up remaining a mess after Trump is done, simply because of one reason and one reason only: the judiciary. Ryan, play the clip.
So look, you've cataloged the horrors that have been inflicted: the rapes, the beatings, the murders, the fentanyl deaths by the hundreds of thousands, the destruction of entire neighborhoods in this country because of the Democrat Party's policy of open borders these last 4 years. You mentioned the threat of international terrorism that is on our shores, the millions of gotaways who entered under the previous administration, on top of the millions more unvetted that were caught and released into the country, and the millions more that were allowed to either fly into the country or overstay their visas. It is a clear and present danger to the national security of this country, and we have federal judges telling President Trump that he can't deport these threats from our communities. This is the choice facing every American. Either we all side and get behind President Trump to remove these terrorists from our communities, or we let a rogue, radical left judiciary shut down the machinery of our national security apparatus. President Trump is going to see this through to his conclusion, and we will find and remove every terrorist from this country, and President Trump will make this nation safer than ever before, and he'll do it over the fighting and opposition of the Democrat Party, over the fighting and opposition of the communist left-wing judges, over the fighting and opposition of the far-left federal bureaucracy. He will not be deterred, Sean. He will see this through, I promise you.
It's good to hear. And there's no doubt, for those of us who understand how Trump operates, there's no doubt, based on what we see at the border right now, that Trump is serious, that he wants to cure this country of the illegal immigration problem. Now, the illegal immigration problem in the country just isn't at the border. We have a visa problem, and we have an existing population problem. And I've always contended that this is why a wall is only like a Band-Aid on cancer, because all it does is kind of stop people from easily crossing over, but it doesn't make the people that are here go home. That's why I always say that the president has to, and I mean has to, implement mandatory E-Verify. I'd love to hear Stephen Miller talk about that, even though he never does, and for some reason that's the directive that comes out of the White House. Well, let's get back to the judges for one moment. This isn't just as if these judges are looking and interpreting law a certain way. These judges have an agenda. These judges are not, as far as I'm concerned, the sort of American that you are and I am. They don't really care about the rule of law. They hide behind a black robe. Let me give you a story that was on True News, or the DML News app, better stated, that we got from Fox News. I'm actually going to read this from Fox News. This is about a judge, okay? The former New Mexico judge who resigned last month after an alleged TDA gang member was arrested at his home can never serve on a bench in that state again. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court of New Mexico ordered that Joel Cano can never hold a judicial office again, be a candidate for judicial office, and cannot exercise any judicial authority in the state, including officiating at weddings. Okay? Now, why? Why? What did this guy do? Okay. So Cano served in the Dona Ana County Magistrate Court in New Mexico. His resignation letter, which was posted all over, is dated March 3, right? So what did this guy do? Well, back in January, Homeland Security investigations began looking into a Venezuelan native named Christian Ortega Lopez. He's an illegal alien from Venezuela and a suspected member of the criminal gang, TDA. And this guy was living with the judge. He was living with the judge and the judge's wife. It started off that this TDA member was doing some housework. He was doing housework for these people. And then one thing led to the next. And before you know it, he's hanging out with the judge's wife. And the wife is literally giving him her guns. And he's taking pictures of himself and posting it on social media holding the guns. So think about the egregiousness of this whole story. You've got a TDA gang member who is a terrorist in the United States. Problem number one. Problem number two, he's hiding in plain daylight. Like I tell you all the time that these gang members, they don't wake up in the morning and they start gang banging right away. They go out and they get jobs. And the reason why they get jobs is because they have to fund their organization. Two is they need to cover up and cover over what it is that they're really doing here. And number three is it finds them victims. And so that's number two, hiding in plain daylight. Number three, he then is getting paid by the wife of a judge. Number four is he is then invited to live with the judge, who then is taking photographs of himself. We had the photographs, but Ryan couldn't load them in time. Taking pictures of himself. The judge is taking pictures of himself with a TDA gang member. And you got to say to yourself, why don't you just piss on the grave of every man and woman who fought for this country? Why don't you just go piss on the grave of every single person who died in 9/11 at the hand of terrorists? Why don't you just go to Lake and Riley? Or why don't you go to one of the other children who was killed by an illegal alien and go take a dump on their grave? Why don't you go up and slap their parent in the face and steal their wallet while you're at it? Stab the dog and burn the house down. I mean, because you are doing everything that you possibly can despicably to these people who have paid so much, who in some cases have given the ultimate sacrifice. And you, a judge, are going to harbor these people in your house. And the worst thing that this guy is getting is that he can't serve on a bench again in New Mexico. This guy should be in prison for his entire life for harboring a terrorist. It doesn't make any sense. If I were to get on the phone right now and call over to, let's say, Syria or Yemen and say, hey, do you have anybody from ISIS over there? Oh, you do? All right, here. I'm going to pay for you to send that member of ISIS. I got a guest house here. I'm going to have him live at my house. If somebody in the government found out that Dennis Michael Lynch was harboring a terrorist for his own good and will, and I was giving him my guns, by the way, I would be thrown in jail. The key would be sent to some place that nobody would ever be able to find. And yet, these judges get to tell you and get to tell Trump, no, you're going to keep these illegal aliens here in this country. You have got to ask yourself what is fueling this. This just isn't one rogue radical dude who somehow found his way on the bench. We've got an ocean of these people in this country right now. They're poisonous, and they are locking up any sense of progress that we can make in this specific area. You could talk about the other areas that they've locked down things as well, whether it's Doge or, no, you have to send funding. What do you mean? I'm cutting off the funding. This is scam. This is fraudulent. Nope, you have to keep on doing it. President gets rid of people who aren't doing their job. Nope, you got to rehire them. What the hell is this? This isn't America. Some dude from God knows wherever who wound up getting himself a friggin' little bench seat. He doesn't dictate what the president can and cannot do. How did we allow ourselves to get so locked up in this craziness? It's not just the judges either. It's not just the judges. We have the most unbelievably nauseated clip of the day. I'm a Catholic, and my faith is unbreakable. But sometimes there are people who represent Christianity, the Catholic Church, and I just say to myself, how did these people squeeze in? I mean, the Pope who just died, God rest his soul, he was a radical liberal. I didn't want this guy running the Catholic Church. What about all those priests that did horrible things to young little boys? Right? You got to sit there and you got to say to yourself, what is going on? What's fueling this? I'm going to play a video right now. with a pastor actually comparing Jesus to illegal aliens.
Just say that again and let that sink in for just a moment. The very person we're celebrating today, the very one in whom we worship, was undocumented. Jesus was a refugee. Jesus knew what it was to flee in fear and to live as a stranger in a strange land. Jesus was that person. If Jesus came today in flesh and blood, would we even let him in? Would we let him cross our borders? Would we let him into our synagogues and sanctuaries? Or would he be met with a wall, a cage, or a flight out of the country to El Salvador?
Dennis, what's your take on this, man?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to Pope Francis, I mean, in the next few days here, there will be a new pope elected, and I think that'll be kind of a litmus test, almost on the international front, whether we're going to get Francis 2.0 or someone who's going to be back to a more traditional sense of Catholicism. And I'm hoping that's the case, because if we have another Francis, I think, as I said, that's the litmus test of where I unfortunately think a lot of facets of Christianity are going. I mean, to almost weaponize Jesus' name there, to call him an undocumented immigrant, with the idea that, first of all, fake term, it's a legal alien. And second of all, bringing Jesus into the U.S. political sphere of what we're dealing with here is so unnecessary and just out of character. It's unbecoming of someone, whether they're a priest or a pastor. So despicable on him. And then even just with going on, as you mentioned, whether it wasn't the president's spot, I would love to see, honestly, Stephen Miller as VP. Because even with JD Vance, I'm a little disappointed he's even using the 20 million number. It is way more than that. You kind of just went over yesterday about how there was the talks of that tax hike, and we wrote about it in the 47 report today, that Trump came out against it, which is, I think, was going to happen, hopefully. But it's clear that either his advisors are leading him down the wrong path, or they don't know what they're talking about. And unfortunately, it's looking like that some of the people who proposed that idea were Scott Bessent, who is his Treasury Secretary, and JD Vance. And I don't understand how, I can even feel comfortable casting a vote for JD Vance when I start hearing this rhetoric. I mean, this is the same guy that called Trump cultural Hitler years back. And while he has apologized for that, and he's been doing his best filling the VP role, we need to instill confidence that if we can't win the midterms and we lose that, and it's just going to become an impeachment circus, well, then what does 2028 look like? Are we destined to be doomed with an AOC presidency or someone equivalent? Or are we going to put our faith in JD Vance if he's not really trying to follow the lead here of what Trump's trying to establish?
Well, I think JD Vance is supporting Trump. The 20 million number, again, it's nonsense. But at the end of the day, this that we're dealing here right now with these judges is completely out of control, because you talk about whether it's a midterm or you talk about 2028, you've got to believe that one of the reasons why they're keeping this going is because they know that if Trump gets even a little piece of his plan in motion, that the country will go Republican for the rest of our days. Just look at the one spot where the judges and the Democrats could not get in the way, and that's at the border. There was nothing they can do. Everything so far that Trump pulled out of his hat of executive orders and putting things into place, our numbers at the border are so damn low. I can't remember a time in 20 years that I've covered this, that we've even been that close. So there you go. Imagine if Trump wasn't having the radical Democrats and the out of control courts dictating what he can and cannot do. Every single one of Trump's plans would look like the border does today. Even the stuff that's going on with the tariffs. Take a look at what's going on with the tariffs. The stock market today is up for the third day in a row. Why? Because the conversation is starting to turn. There are more countries coming to the table quietly, having conversations with the president. Nobody's going all in too quickly. They're negotiating. That is exactly what you want. You don't want helter-skelter kind of things. Trump is a master negotiator. Master negotiator. He's now getting sued. I think we saw it yesterday. No, it was this morning. I thought I put it on here for a dozen states, mostly all of them Democrat states, have sued President Trump over his tariffs on Wednesday, arguing that he has no power to arbitrarily impose tariffs as he has done here. Now, what's going to wind up happening? Why is the market coming back? Because they're seeing that what's happening is that Trump is actually going to win this battle. China is ultimately going to fold. There's conversations going on right now, at least from the White House's point of view. China is denying that these conversations are having take place, but I'm going to believe the White House over China every single day. Trump has pumped up these tariffs to an unbelievable well over 100%. Why did he do that? He did that because he knows that ultimately he's going to land at a number lower, but that lower number is going to be better than things were prior to him starting the tariffs. I've told everybody this before. My wife's uncle dealt with Trump for decades in doing deals and building skyscrapers. And I asked him, I said, Uncle Kenny, what's it like negotiating with Trump? He says, Trump always plays the numbers. If Trump comes in and says to you, he can only pay $10, you really know that he can pay $15. If you go in and you give him a number, you better boost your number up because he's going to beat that number down. It's just, it's not hard. All you have to do is read Art of the Deal, and you can see how it is that he negotiates. He never really intended to have 150% tariff on China, but he does that to inflict pain. So this way, China comes back to the table and says, okay, we'll accept 25% or 50%. This is going to take time. But you've got the Democrats and you've got these radical judges and you got the courts all interrupting the process. The process. Imagine, this is maybe the easiest way for me to describe it. Imagine you're making Thanksgiving dinner, right? Everybody knows Thanksgiving dinner. You got to start the night before, right? You're doing all the stuff. You got to defrost the turkey. You got to baste the turkey. You got to do all the different stuff. There is a process. Imagine every time you went to go do another thing for Thanksgiving dinner, somebody came in and turned off your stove. You're never going to have dinner ready for Thanksgiving. There is a process that needs to go uninterrupted. If you have one interruption, okay, you work around it, you get going. They are interrupting Trump every single last moment they can. And this is designed so this way we can get to the midterms and have as little progress as possible. It is all by design. Make no mistake. There are leftists behind this, people behind the scenes that you don't even know, that you've probably never even heard of, although George Soros is definitely playing his part in the whole role. And this is what we're up against. If you don't think that these judges are having meetings and having conversations, even if it's through proxy, about what needs to be done to stop this man from making America great again, you're crazy, because that's how it works.
I have to answer Linda here. Did you know Scott Bessent worked for Soros? Yes, I did. There's definitely some people in that Trump administration, I will say from day one, I was not happy for him picking. And I think I said on the show the other day, Trump is always going to be forced to have to do some compromise, especially when you're in a leadership position. So, for example, I think Pete Hegseth to run the DOD was clearly a personal choice of Trump's, whereas Marco Rubio was probably more made on a consensus with different advisors and different deals made. So when you have to kind of deal with that with the administration and dealing with people that, when you hear them propose a plan that you're not crazy about, what's the background here? It just goes to show. I mean, George Soros clearly has, I guess, his fingers in different plates here.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the majority of the administration at the end of the day definitely wants to see the borders closed, definitely wants to see the illegal aliens deported. I'm going to support the administration 100% so far in everything I've seen them do with immigration, with the exception of, I don't know why we have not heard one iota about mandatory E-Verify. Hopefully that comes up real soon. But Trump is faced with multiple different issues right now that he is going to have to figure out how to get it done. And I think one of the biggest issues that he's got that I don't even know if the smartest person in the world would be able to solve this right now, and that is between Russia and Ukraine. And overnight, Russian forces launched a major missile and drone attack on Kyiv, and it killed at least 9 people, injured more than 60. And President Trump is not happy. In fact, he tweeted out to Vladimir Putin, Vladimir, you got to stop this. You got to stop it. And now Zelensky is saying that he doesn't want to continue with these peace talks because he doesn't want to give up any land. Russia's saying that they want to take some territory back. I mean, this is just one of those things that you're never going to make everybody happy. And it may actually wind up being where the United States has to actually just turn a blind eye to this and say, you know what, it's not our problem anymore. If it becomes our problem, we're going to start bombing the hell out of all of you. Do not make this our problem. And this is not going to go into a world war because we're not going to participate. Here is something that Trump and J.D. Vance retweeted about Zelensky. This is from Trump. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. The statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia, in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama and is not even a point of discussion. Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? The area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that makes it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the entire country. I have nothing to do with Russia, but have much to do with wanting to save, on average, 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelensky today will do nothing but prolong the killing field. So, at the end of the day, Trump said that he was going to solve this problem on day one. Obviously, that's a metaphor. It's hyperbole. It's just sort of, political speak. But we don't see any real progress being made there. And I think the reason being is because you have 2 thick-headed individuals. You got Vladimir Putin, who's not going to give an inch. You got Zelensky, who's not going to give an inch. And so if you cannot move these 2 people 1 iota, then what do? Then what you do is you move yourself. You say, I'm removing it. I'm done. I'm sanctioning everybody. Everybody's getting sanctioned. We don't need you. We ain't funding this. We're not getting involved in it. Europe, Ukraine is your issue. China, Russia is yours. If these 2 go into a full-fledged war that goes beyond what we see, and we think that America is at any sort of risk whatsoever, then we come in and we enter the game, and we're going to take care of both of these countries and just wipe them down. That's where this is headed. There is no good place for where this is headed. We have a clip here of Trump talking about Ukraine and Russia. Play it, Ryan.
And if I can solve it because of a certain ability, that would be great. And if it doesn't happen, I will say that I think Russia is ready. And a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. And I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky. And I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far, it's been harder. But that's okay. It's all right. But I think we have a deal with both. I hope they do it because I'm looking to save. And, we spend a lot of money, but this is about a lot of humanity. This is the worst. I get the pictures, the satellite pictures. I've never seen anything like it of the fields after some of these battles. It's horrible that it's going for nothing. We would have never had this problem. You would have never had that war if I were president. I guarantee you that. And for 4 years, you didn't have it.
There is no doubt in my mind that if President Trump were the president, if he didn't have the election stolen from him, there would be no war. But the fact of the matter is that he wasn't in the White House and we have this war. So Trump at some point is going to have to make a very, very difficult decision. I know he is referencing, Dennis, the people who are dying on the battlefield. But at the end of the day, we have tried and we have tried and we have tried. And I would rather see our financial efforts and our money go to the American citizens than go to Ukraine so this way they could continue to burn it. It doesn't make any sense.
No, this has to be one of the biggest headaches Trump has to deal with day in, day out. I mean, I'll never forget just listening to that Tucker Carlson, Vladimir Putin interview, that 3-hour one he did, I think, last year. Russia, or at least, in Putin's mindset, he almost kind of encompasses the Chinese mindset, right? China thinks generationally, whereas unfortunately the US thinks in quarters and elections. So they see the long term. I think this has been something of a long term plan for Putin to get back those territories. And he won't probably say it blatantly, but to honestly get back probably all of Ukraine. Zelensky, on the other hand, is a slobbish leader who clearly has no problem throwing countless young men, and in some cases now older men who shouldn't even be fighting, into the meat grinder, and refusing to hold elections and refusing to even find any sort of compromise. So Trump, in a way, is dealing with two hotheads in a way that are not going to. They're either going to have to make a compromise where there's just a huge benefit for one side, or it's just going to continue on. And I know part of the deal that they were trying to make was that, this is very big for Russia, that Ukraine by no means would join NATO. But one of the things that could be a takeaway is that they join the EU, meaning they become part of the European Union. And it seems that Zelensky is not looking to budge whatsoever. So then when you get an attack on Kyiv, the capital city, that's Russia's way of saying, okay, if you're not looking to really come to the table here, we're going to continue on, because as much as every, liberal pundit has said for the last 3 years that Russia's really struggling, it seems like Russia's the one that kind of keeps holding their ground and advancing, whereas Ukraine, as soon as we turn off the faucet, they're the ones who are in trouble. So this has to be, I'm sure, probably Trump's number one headache at this point, other than the judges and the radicalism from them. And I know it was hyperbole that he was going to stop at day one, but we're almost at day 100, and they're out there last offering peace deal. I know Marco Rubio canceled his appearance at the London summit for this peace deal because there's just no headway being made, and it's very unfortunate. And I can only imagine maybe even being a Ukrainian or Russian soldier who's not one of these powerful leaders making these decisions, getting ready to be blown up by a drone or be shot up by a tank.
Well, see that, and I think that is part of a strategic move that Trump could make. If we were sitting around the table, if I was part of the Trump administration and Trump was saying, okay, I want to hear everybody's ideas of what to do here with Russia and Ukraine, because obviously we're not getting anywhere, I'd raise my hand and I'd say, excuse me, Mr. President, I think that the best way to do this is that we just ignore them. And he'd say, well, give me an example. I'd say, oh, give me an example right now. I said, if my wife and I wound up having an argument, and my wife is just dead wrong, and I can't get anywhere with her because she's being completely unreasonable, at some point I realized the only way to make an impact is for me to walk away. If I walk away and I ignore her and I don't listen to her ranting and raving, I say, I'm not interested. And I walk away. And then what winds up happening, she changes her tone. And then she comes back. And I said, well, if you're going to yell at me, I'm not going to have a conversation with you. And then she's like, okay, I won't yell. And the second she winds up yelling again, I walk away. And I just shut down. And I won't talk. And then what happens is she figures out that if I'm going to ignore what it is that she wants to discuss, it's never going to get discussed. So, Mr. President, why don't we just ignore this? Why don't we just say, like I said, let's just put out a statement on Truth Social. Here's the statement. We'll try to make it a sentence. The European Union must take Ukraine and all responsibility for it. China must take responsibility for its partner in Russia. We are no longer involved. Figure out your business. But understand that if there is any threat to the American people or to the U.S. economy or to anything even close that says America is going to pay a price because of what's happening here, we will retaliate. That's it. That's your statement. You say nothing else about it. And you walk away. And then when you're not interested anymore, nobody else is going to get interested. And once everybody starts being bored, it's going to stop. And when China calls up Vladimir Zelensky and says, listen to me, the U.S. is putting sanctions on us to the point of where we're all going to be choked. This Ukraine thing is not that important, Vladimir. Let's move on, okay? Let's move on. That's the way. We're giving it too much attention. We're giving it attention. We're fueling the fire. We need to walk away. We have domestic issues that we need to address here in this country. We need to boost the economy. We need to get people back to work in a way that they are making enough money to where they don't have to work 3 jobs. We've got senior citizens in this country who can't afford their prescriptions. They can't afford to go and get food. We've got children in this country who are going to school hungry, believe it or not. We've got homeless veterans. We've got so many different problems. We got the Democrats traveling to El Salvador to try to save the neck of an MS-13 member. And meanwhile, we've got American citizens who are just beside themselves because it's been so long that they have been struggling. They voted for Trump to get in here and to make a difference. And so we have got to start focusing in on that. That is our primary responsibility, and that is that. Now, Trump just announced something that he was thinking about giving out a $5,000 payment to moms. Dennis, what's that all about?
Yeah, so they're trying to create ways to basically encourage the population boom. And one of these ideas was that for new mothers, they get a $5,000 check. And I think surface level, it sounds great. Like, oh, okay, that can boost it. But I would like more provisions, like maybe a married couple gets the 5,000, because I think this could easily be abused. I mean, you wrote a fantastic DML report not too long ago about how the Chinese abuse those birthing centers, and we obviously have an anchor baby issue here. So unless there's more specific outlines to these proposals, my fear is that we get a little bit of a population boom that we're not asking for, which is Chinese nationals coming over, whether it's on a visa or elsewhere, and somehow abusing the system and getting $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 out of it from birthing these kids. So I would like to more see a refined messaging or a refined plan that gives it maybe more opportunity, because I know Hungary does it with married couples. And this idea has been tried in other countries before, like South Korea tried it and it did not work. So I think if they can really tailor something that would work to get couples to want to procreate and do it in the sense of the core of the nuclear family. Like last night, I was actually talking to a neighbor of mine, and we kind of got into that about how, and we've talked about it before, like the core of the nuclear family unit kind of continues to diminish by the decade, at least for those that have been American citizens, right? Like you see smaller families, you see there's this trend, I saw it on social media, where married couples are purposely not having kids because they can have their dual incomes and live this lavish life. And I know Elon Musk is in government right now with Trump only for a short time left, but he's very pro population boom. He feels that without humanity actually wanting to increase or get babies born and to replace the fourth the before generations, we could see it where we're like China, Japan, or South Korea, where they're having an unsustainable population. And I want there to be a citizenry, population boom, because it can then justify not having to have illegal aliens come in to fill the roles because of this decline.
So I take exception on some of the things there, and maybe it's because I grew up in a situation where my father wasn't around, but I don't know if the $5,000 one-time payment is going to be enough. I think we have a huge problem in the United States, which I've talked about for a very long time, even going back to when I was on Fox News and debating on whether or not I should give my efforts to running for office. And even if I were to run for a smaller office, Senate or something else like that, I would be a champion for this one thing I'm talking about here. We have created a situation in the United States of America where the costs of being an American is outweighing the benefits of being an American. We have made it so this way the American population is totally stressed out. And the majority of that stress is, how am I going to afford my car payment? How am I going to afford groceries? How am I going to afford a rent? Am I ever going to be able to buy a house? I'm retired. Is my Social Security going to run out? The amount of stress that we have put on our citizenship just solely with finances is absolutely insane. So what I'd like, I mean, I think at the core, Trump has a good sense for people are hurting with money. I just don't know if the plan is the best plan. So first and foremost, whether it was a married couple or a single woman, first and foremost, we have to have an incredible vetting process to make sure we're not giving $5,000 to an illegal alien.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, $5,000 would be a great idea, especially to a mom who's sitting there and thinking, should I have an abortion or should I keep the baby? I can't afford anything. Well, now they get a couple bucks. Maybe that's a way of saying, yeah, I'm going to have this baby. I used to talk all the time about the abortion issue when I used to go around and give my speeches, especially when I was thinking about running for office. People ask me all the time, how would you address the abortion issue? And I said, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you are always going to have a fraction of this country that is going to say, no, I want to be able to have my abortion. But if you really look at the young girls who get stuck in this situation, a lot of times it's, I don't have the money, I won't be able to afford to have a child. Well, what about if you told them, look, at least have the child and give it up for adoption? You could wind up making a lot of money from doing that. And if your financial situation is hurting now, it could be less than hurting once you have the baby. You're saving a life. You're making another couple in the United States who can't have children happy, and you got some money. It's a win-win-win all over the place. But in this particular case of giving out money, the problem I don't like about it is that it's a one-time hit, and $5,000 in the United States of America isn't what it used to be anymore. $5,000 doesn't go very far.
Yeah.
I think there should be a greater effort that says, if you have a child, we are going to give you incredible amount of tax incentives to where it is something that's going to be long-term and permanent, that you know that you're going to wind up being incentivized to have a bigger family. Let's get back to those days of having a bigger family. Now, what we see is that we see a decline in the birth rate in the United States, especially among whites, because it is just too damn expensive to live as an individual, to live as a couple, let alone live as a family. It's very expensive to have a child. Trust me, I have 4 of them. Now, when you look at the left, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to take, Trump is doing this not to try to help young mothers, not to try to help families, not to try to increase the rate of birth here in the United States. So this way we don't have to take in so many immigrants, because that's the other big argument. Let's all these immigrants come in. Let these illegals come in. Our birth rate's going down too far. On The View, the radical idiots on The View, they want to make this right away into a racial issue. Even though Trump didn't say anything that was racial, they're going to spin it a certain way. Ryan, play the video.
Because when I look at something like this, these proposals, I want to know why, and I want to know who's making them. And so when I looked into that, they're saying that the U.S. birth rate is declining. However, in 2024, there was a 1% increase in U.S. births, but that increase was with Hispanic mothers and Asian mothers. So they don't seem to be concerned about that increase. They seem to be more concerned about a decrease in other populations.
Say it.
No, I think I said enough.
It's not based on that.
And so, well, it's just based on a study. And so the other thing
But have they said that anywhere? I mean, I feel like it have to be fair.
It's just
fair to who?
It's just a.
Have they said that this is to target only white families?
Oh, I didn't say that.
You
I
have to read
between
the lines.
I just gave the stats.
Yeah, but it's about economics. They're wanting people to.
I'll say it right now. I don't have a problem with if Trump is looking at and saying the white population in the country. I mean, he didn't come out and say it. I'll say it for him. The white population in this country is decreasing, and that shouldn't be the case. If you want to be in an all-black nation, go to Africa. You want to be in an all-Latino nation? Go to Mexico. You want to be in an all-Jewish nation? Go to Israel. But if you want to be in a country that used to be filled with a lot of Christians and a lot of whites, because we're not bad people, We're not bad people. In fact, if you look at the advancements in the world and you look and you want to play demographic, I don't want to play demographic. I'd rather just say Americans make the most advancements over any other nation in the world. But if you want to do demographics, Sonny, I'll do demographics all day long. I defy you. Let's take the top 100 white men and women who have made significant impacts on the United States of America, and then take any other demographic you want to take and try to find 100. Try to find 100. Don't try to go compare. Just try to find 100. You could go around the world. Go to any country that you want. Go to China. Go to India. Go to any of them. Try to find me 100 people that have equivalent accomplishments. Now, does that make it that we're racist? Does that make it that we're wrong, that we're bad? No. It's just like if I said to you, go line up the top 100 athletes of all time that are men and put them against the top 100 that are women, there's going to be no comparison. And then I could turn around and say, come up with the top 100 homemakers versus, and you're going to wind up seeing that women are going to dominate. I don't know what to tell you. These are the stats. But I can tell you that the white couples are out there working their asses off. They don't want to be collecting welfare. They don't want the handouts. They were taught to go out and work and try to be successful. And that's what they're out doing. So it's really hard to have children when you're forced to work so many different jobs and so many different hours. And for Sonny to try to make this sound like Trump just wants to take the white people and up them so this way we can dominate. No, we'd like to save our race. We'd like to save our presence. We would like to save. I don't want to live in Mexico. If I wanted to live in Mexico, I'd move to Tijuana. So when you tell me that the number that we had a 1% uptick last year in births, and then you tell me that it's Hispanics, I could tell you, yeah, look at the amount of illegal aliens that just came through with Joe Biden in the last 4 years. The majority of these people are from Latin America. They're coming over here and they're freaking having children who shouldn't even be American citizens, but the 14th Amendment is screwing the rest of us. I don't want to hear that my growth as a nation is based on illegal aliens using the 14th Amendment as a way of getting free shit.
Isn't it just wild too, just how much contempt she has when she has to, address that maybe it is to boost the white population? Because you know that if the directive was specific to Hispanic population, and I know she's Hispanic, but even the black population or even the Asian population, because they have that issue in a few countries over in Asia, like Japan, she would be talking about it in such a more humbling, modest tone. But as soon as it's white, her voice, her rhetoric, her overall behavior, it shows such contempt, and it's a shame that I think hopefully in my lifetime the weaponization of trying to use racism as an insult is going to die out. Because why is it that if I say, "Oh, I am proud to be white," I might get labeled, in the UK for hate speech, or in Scotland for hate speech, or in Germany, I might be thrown behind a cell. And I'm not making that up. In all those countries, that happens. Why is that the issue? But then if I'm black and I say I'm proud to be black, I am almost overgloriously praised for it. I mean, it's very warped that this has become such a almost cultural phenomenon that you won't find in other countries. I mean, if you're in China and you say I'm proud to be Chinese, you're okay, great, that's fantastic. You're not demonized for it. So I just find it sad and laughable that she's going to read between the lines that this is an affront to boost the white population. God forbid, right? I just
yeah, that's the thing. If somebody like that, like Sonny, is gonna wind up bringing that narrative to the table, then we're gonna challenge her back. That's not the way we speak. I just said if you line up 100 people, I'll tell you what, line up neurosurgeons. And I tell you from my experience and reading and knowing the person, if I had Siamese twins and they had to be separated, first person I'm calling is a black man named Ben Carson. I'm not going to look at him as being black. I'm not going to look at him as being a man. I'm going to look at him as being a great doctor. But these freaks on The View want to make everything race, because why? Race sells. So if you want to play that game, I'll play that game. Yeah, I'd love to see more of whites having more families. I don't like to see so many whites having smaller families. At the same breath, I'll say, I'd like to see blacks have less abortions. They're having too many abortions. There I am. I'm championing right now for more black births. Sonny would never bring that up. If I was on The View, I'd say, hey, Sonny, you know what? One of the things we could do is maybe we could stand outside Planned Parenthood and maybe you could get some of the blacks not to have so many abortions.
Unfortunately, you won't be on The View because I think I put in a 47 report last week or 2 weeks ago. So far this year, I think they've had 60 guests with liberal ideological leanings, and they've had 0 conservatives whatsoever on the show. It just goes to show what they're standing for.
Of course. Well, because listen, when you don't have anything intelligent to say, what do? You go to race because that will make people click. All right. So that's just the way it is. But sadly, that was what The View put out. And we thought we'd bring it up there because if she's going to be sitting there making accusations that are false about racism and Trump just wanting to have white people, we're going to push back. And we're going to push back hard. All right, so that's it for us today. God willing, we'll be with you again tomorrow. Let me just say real quick, DML CBD, go there. It's a buy one, get one free. There's only 2 days left, today and tomorrow. I talked at the beginning of the show about all the advantages that it could do for you physically. So if you didn't hear me say that, you may want to rewind the show and go. Make sure you hit the share button. If you don't hit the share button, you don't care. And then, of course, last thing, 47report.com. If you have not signed up for 47report.com newsletter, you're making yourself a great mistake. I do not sell. I do not share your email address. Go to 47report.com, put your email address in. Starting tomorrow, you'll get the newsletter 7 days a week. You'll also then get the bonus plan. Absolutely, everything is for free. Doesn't cost you a dime. You'll get the DML report, which comes in the afternoon. That's from Monday to Friday. So go to 47report.com right now, give your email address, and that's that. All right, I got to go. I've got a meeting, and I've got 2 meetings today, so I'm running late already. Thank you for your time today, and like I said, we shall see you tomorrow, God willing. Until then, may God bless you, your family, these United States, our president, our vice president, and even the people on The View. They need prayers more than anybody else.
Today's Team DML blessing goes out to Angie Meinke. I hope I said that correct.
All right, Angie, run with it.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.